Assumptions That Affect Our Lives by Dr. Christian Overman. Chapter 8: The Prevailing Wind of Postmodernism. As this edition of Assumptions That Affect Our Lives comes into print, professors and university students in Europe are no longer talking about postmodernism. It's old stuff for them. They are moving on to discussing what follows postmodernism. What exactly is this, however, is not so clear. This is not to say that postmodernism is dead. The effects of postmodernism are still very much alive, not only in Europe, but certainly in the United States. For this reason, it is worth including a short summary of postmodernism in this book. For many people, the word postmodern seems to come out of nowhere in the later years of the 20th century. Although historian Arnold Toynbee used the word postmodern back in 1954 to describe Western civilization's decline into irrationality and relativism, the term didn't really seem to crystallize in the academic world until the mid-1970s. Culture watchers were still defining it in the 90s. Even today, its meaning varies among those who use it. But it is an important concept to understand. To wrap our minds around the meaning of postmodern, we'll start with the word modern. This is because postmodernism is perhaps best understood as a reaction to modernism. The roots of the modern era of Western civilization go back to the 17th century, to the scientific revolution, the invention of the microscope and the telescope, and the discoveries of Kepler, Galileo, and Newton opened new perspectives on the world, and birthed different ways of seeing things and thinking about reality. By the time of the Enlightenment in the 18th century, modernism was in high gear. The very term Enlightenment connotates the notion that a new light has dawned upon the West. This new light was the light of human reason, independent of divine revelation. This was a reason independent of a supernatural source of knowledge. It was a kind of reason based solely upon that which could be proven through scientific rationalism and empirical evidence. With the Enlightenment, a new approach to determining truth and reality emerged. Truth was no longer to be discovered by looking to revelation from God or to church councils, but rather by means of scientific observation and measurement. The five senses of sight, touch, taste, sound, and smell governed one's concept of what was really real and true. In this approach to knowledge, scientific rationalism became the new guiding light. God, miracles, and the supernatural were relegated to the realm of folklore. During the modern era, optimism steadily grew with the belief that science and the scientific method would eventually solve all problems known to man. Progress through human intelligence and scientific rationalism energized Western civilization. Modernity had arrived, and with it the hope of utopian society. Along with the elevating of the independent human reason and the rejection of the supernatural, came a belief that mankind was the ultimate center of meaning and significance. A man-centered, materialistic, rationalistic view of the world took hold. Modernity also brought with it the idea that mankind could discover universal truths, truths that apply to everyone through independent human reason and the scientific method. These overarching objective truths would define what was really good, what was really evil, what was really right, and what was really wrong, not only for individuals, but for a whole society. This belief was, in part, the result of approaching social issues with the same kind of scientific methodology one approached chemicals and numbers. The tide turns. The later part of the 20th century saw the optimism of modernity turn into postmodern cynicism. Some scholars see the 1960s as a pivotal decade between the modern era and the postmodern era. By the 1990s, modernism was a serious crisis. After 200 years of trust in the human anatomy, elevating reason, and devaluing divine revelation, the 20th century brought wars of unthinkable proportion, nuclear bombs, bloodshed of a magnitude never imagined, and ideological conflicts beyond belief. Science and the scientific method began to be viewed with suspicion, if not downright rejected. If this was progress, who needed it? If reason based upon the scientific method brought us to the brink of self-destruction, perhaps it wasn't such a trustworthy light after all. The old modern idea that universal truth could be discovered by means of scientific rationalism was no longer held by postmoderns. In fact, the very notion of objective reason itself came under fire. Some postmodern thinkers denied that human beings were capable of being truly objective. Their rationale was that any criterion a human being might come up with for determining objective truth was, in itself, the subjective product of a human mind and therefore of human language. And because human language was viewed as culturally conditioned and socially influenced, it raised postmodern suspicions about any claims to truth. Postmodernists asserted that truth, which was universally true for everybody, did not exist. This is because they saw truth as something that was determined differently by different groups or tribes in different social and cultural contexts. This produced such statements as "what is true" or "right" for you may not be true for me. It also allowed non-Christians to express ideas to Christian-like, "I'm glad you found the truth for you. If it works for you, great." The same person could hold to atheism as truth for me. Truth for the postmodern became a matter of personal preference. The fact that a concept of truth held by one group contradicted what was true for another group was not a serious problem. While empirical, scientifically proven evidence stood in judgment over all claims of truth in the modern era, in the postmodern era, culture and social perspectives are taken more seriously. This line of thinking, carried to its logical conclusion, means that Buddhists and Christianity could both be viewed as equally true within the context of the culture in which they exist. They are both products of human societies, the postmodernist claims. If this is indeed the case, then who is to say that one group's concept of reality is true and another's is false? For one group to claim that they have the truth for all is viewed as repressive and intolerant in the postmodernist. If all religions and ideologies are equally true, then it is not permitted for one to say that another religion or ideology is false. The cardinal sin of postmodernism is for one group to be intolerant of another group's values or ethics. However, to be tolerant today not only means that one allows others to believe and practice their own concept of truth, but that one accepts the fact that any other group's concept of truth is just as true as theirs. After all, if truth is a social construct expressed through language having culturally conditioned meanings, then it is not only beauty that is in the eye of the beholder, but truth as well. There are no absolutes or universal truths, according to the postmodernism, and truth is neither found through reason nor revelation. Along with the postmodern reaction of the idea of scientifically determining truth via reason, in the modern era came the postmodern acceptance of intuition or gut instinct as a valid factor in determining what is true for you. While Christians can be thankful that many postmodern people are open to the idea that there are other ways of knowing truth besides through independent human reason and the scientific method, turning to human intuition and inner feelings is just as problematic. Does believing that a certain idea is true make it true? Can truth be humanly determined? Is there no objective standard of truth by which all truth claims of every society and culture can be measured? A different center. Through postmodernism, a new celebration of diversity and multiculturalism brought with it the idea there is no objective standard above us all. The notion that non-European cultures and ideas have been intolerantly devalued in the West has become a major focus of growing grievance. Included in this grievance is the claim that traditional Christianity is oppressive and victimizing. Oppressive is that it does not tolerate, that is, accept others' view of what is right or wrong, and victimizing it would be discriminates against groups with differing views to right and wrong. To say biblical precepts applied to everyone is viewed by postmodernists as intolerant arrogance. In the pre-modern era of Western civilization during the Middle Ages, the center of meaning for mankind was ultimately found in the supernatural God and his will on earth. In the modern era, the center of meaning shifted from God to man. In postmodernism, however, there is no standard center of meaning other than that which a particular group determines to be the center of meaning for them. For some postmodernists, reality itself is a human construct. If this is the case, we live in a vast realm of multiple realities. In the 1960s, the cry of the hour was question authority. But by the 1990s, the cry of the hour for many had become question reality. The theme of alternative realities was seen in such popular films as The Truman Show and The Matrix. The idea of constructing reality was heard from such New Age gurus as Deepak Chopra and Shirley MacLaine. The West is currently experiencing a resurgence of an age-old question: what is really real? It is the same question that drove the ancient Greeks through 200 years of philosophic speculation after Thales of Ionia declared the sun and the stars to be balls of fire, and not gods after all, nearly 600 years before Christ. Whether this re-emergence of the questioning of reality is the outcome of a postmodern reaction to modernism, or the result of a hyper-individualism of the 1970s, or the embracing of Eastern religions, or a mixture of all of the above, is open to discussion. But the fact is, it is part of the current sea of surrounding ideas we're swimming in today. Even in such high places as the United States Supreme Court, the right to shape one's own concept of reality is touted as a basic tenet of freedom. Consider this definition of liberty from the joint opinion of Justices O'Connor, Kennedy, and Souter in Planned Parenthood versus Casey of 1992. At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. Carrying such a construct, your own concept of existence, to its logical conclusion is a chilling prospect indeed. Not only could such a concept of liberty be used to justify abortion, but infanticide as well. In fact, it already has. So-called partial birth abortion legalized by the Supreme Court in the year 2000 is nothing short of infanticide. For reasons such as these, the consequences of failing to integrate the unchanging, universal, and enduring biblical worldview into the minds of the next generation are enormously serious, both for individuals as well as the entire culture. Furthermore, if there ever was a time to re-articulate the basics of the biblical worldview to the next generation, and to demonstrate how this worldview connects with all of reality, it is now. Some positive aspects of postmodernism. While the death of universal truth is indeed a bleak outcome of the demise of modernism, the dawning of postmodernism brings with it a new window of possibility for followers of Christ. The decline of modernism, with its rejection of the supernatural and its idolatrous worship of human reason, is a turn of events for which Christians can be thankful. Yes, postmodernism has brought with it some things for which we can rejoice. For example, the rejection of independent, autonomous human reason and the lifting up of the scientific method as ultimate measurements of reality is a welcome relief. People are more willing these days to take the supernatural seriously. While this has given rise to popular radio and television shows dealing with the paranormal, and to an acceptance of Eastern ideas like reincarnation, a new opportunity for Christians to connect the biblical worldview with the marketplace of postmodern ideas is now upon us. While in the postmodern world there is a keen interest in spirituality, this spirituality cannot be equated with Christianity. Postmodern interest in spirituality is a reflection of the acceptance of all types of worldviews that give room for a spiritual dimension, from Buddhism to Scientology. The desire to nurture spirituality both in the private aspects of a personal life as well as the marketplace is one of the continuing themes of the postmodernist. Followers of Christ would do well to take advantage of this turn of events and engage in conversations about the spiritual dimensions of life while the opportunity is at hand. This open window may not last long. We now have an opportunity for finding common ground with neighbors, coworkers, that was not possible in the modern era. This common ground can open up conversations about worldview issues such as life after death, the existence of a personal God, and the purpose for human existence beyond earning a paycheck. People are more willing to listen today and to engage in discussion about such things. Christians must learn to listen more and to ask genuine questions that show real interest in how other people make sense of their world. Neither modernism nor postmodernism are dead. Both modernism and postmodernism are forces we deal with every day. This is the world in which our children are growing up. It is the world for which they must be prepared, and they must be equipped to face serious ideological challenges on both fronts. For the time being, at least in America, postmodernism is continuing to be the prevailing wind. It is a climate which allows Eastern religion to thrive right alongside Christianity, Islam, and atheism. And just as the prevailing wind of modernism during the early years of the 20th century allowed atheistic worldviews such as Marxism and humanism to blossom, postmodernism has opened the door for pantheistic worldviews and alternative spirituality to find new acceptance in the West. We are now living in an era of multi-ism, a state of affairs that bears haunting resemblance to ancient Athens at the end of the life of Greece.